In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where the autumn leaves painted the streets in hues of amber and crimson, lived an old man named Harold Jenkins, a relic of a bygone era whose stories were etched not in books but in the faint scars on his weathered hands and the distant gaze in his steel-blue eyes. Harold was 89 years old, a World War II veteran who had stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, felt the thunder of artillery shake his bones, and watched comrades fall like autumn leaves in the chaos of battle, their youthful dreams snuffed out in the mud and blood of Europe. He rarely spoke of those days now, preferring the solitude of his modest bungalow on the edge of town, where the only sounds were the ticking of an ancient grandfather clock and the occasional creak of his rocking chair on the porch as he sipped black coffee and stared at the horizon, lost in memories that no one else could touch. His wife, Eleanor, had passed away a decade earlier from a lingering illness that had stolen her vitality bit by bit, leaving Harold to navigate the empty rooms filled with faded photographs of their life together, a wedding in 1946, children who had grown and moved away to bustling cities, grandchildren he saw only on holidays, their visits brief and polite but lacking the depth he craved. The world had moved on, technology buzzing with gadgets he didn't understand, people glued to screens instead of faces, and Harold felt like a ghost in his own lifetime, invisible amid the rush of modern life. Every Tuesday, though, he ventured out to Mabel's Diner, a cozy spot on Main Street with checkered tablecloths, the aroma of fresh apple pie wafting from the kitchen, and waitresses who knew him by name, serving him the same order, scrambled eggs, toast with strawberry jam, and a bottomless cup of coffee, black as the nights he spent in foxholes under enemy fire. It was his ritual, a small anchor in a sea of loneliness, where he could sit by the window, watch the townsfolk hurry by, and pretend for a moment that he still belonged. On this particular Tuesday in late September, the diner was quieter than usual, the morning fog clinging to the glass panes like a veil, muting the outside world, and Harold settled into his booth with a sigh, his cane propped against the seat, his veteran's cap with its faded insignia perched on the table like a badge of honor few noticed anymore. Across the street, at Willow Creek Elementary School, a group of fourth graders buzzed with excitement in Mrs. Thompson's classroom, their small faces alight with the kind of pure enthusiasm only children possess, untainted by cynicism or doubt. Mrs. Thompson, a vibrant teacher in her 40s with a passion for history that bordered on obsession, had spent the past month immersing her students in the tales of World War II, not the dry facts from textbooks but the human story of bravery, sacrifice, and the ordinary people who became heroes in extraordinary times. She had shown them black and white films of soldiers marching, read letters from the front lines, and even invited a local historian to speak, but what ignited the spark was when little Emma Rodriguez, a bright-eyed girl with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile, raised her hand and asked, "What can we do to thank them now?" That question planted a seed, and soon the class was brainstorming ways to honor veterans in their community, their ideas tumbling out like colorful Marbellesa drawing cards, baking cookies, or perhaps something bigger, something that would echo through the hearts of those who had given so much. It was Tommy Hayes, the class clown with freckles and boundless energy, who suggested a surprise performance, inspired by a video he'd seen online of kids singing to elders, and the idea caught fire, evolving into a plan to serenade a local veteran with the national anthem, but not just any rendition, a heartfelt, patriotic medley that blended the Star-Spangled Banner with America the Beautiful, arranged with simple harmonies they practiced during recess, their voices rising in unison like a chorus of hope. They chose Harold after Mrs. Thompson discreetly inquired around town, learning of his Tuesday routine at Mabel's, and the children spent weeks preparing in secret, crafting signs with glitter and markers that read "Thank you for your service" and "Heroes never fade," their small hands trembling with anticipation as they imagined the look on his face. Parents got involved too, sewing tiny flags onto vests, rehearsing lines of gratitude, and coordinating with the diner's owner, Mabel herself, a stout woman with a heart as big as her famous pancakes, who agreed to keep the surprise under wraps, her eyes misting at the thought of honoring Harold, whom she had served for over 30 years without ever hearing the full extent of his wartime ordeals. As the day approached, The kids' excitement built like a storm on the horizon, whispers in the hallways, giggles suppressed during lessons, and a shared sense of purpose that made school feel like an adventure rather than a chore. Harold, oblivious to the brewing magic, stirred his coffee that morning, his mind wandering back to 1944, to the landing craft bobbing in the English Channel, the roar of engines mingling with the pounding of his heart, the faces of his squad mates as young men like him, full of bravado masking terror as they prepared to charge into the unknown, bullets whizzing like angry hornets, the sand turning red under their boots. He remembered carrying a wounded friend through hellfire, the weight of responsibility heavier than any pack, and the letters from Eleanor that kept him going, her words a lifeline in the darkness. Now, those memories were his constant companions, bittersweet reminders of a life fully lived yet profoundly altered, and as he took a bite of toast, he wondered if anyone truly understood the cost of freedom, the invisible wounds that never healed. Outside, the school bus pulled up discreetly a block away, the children piling out in hushed tones, their teacher leading them like a general marshalling troops, hearts racing with a mix of nerves and joy. They crossed the street in a giggling line, signs hidden under coats. Voices warmed up from a quick practice in the park, and as they approached Mabel's door, the bell tinkling like a signal of impending wonder, Harold glanced up from his plate, sensing a shift in the air, a subtle electricity that made the hairs on his arms stand on end, though he couldn't place why. The diner was about to become a stage for something extraordinary, a collision of generations where innocence met experience, and the past would dance with the present in a melody of tears and triumph. Little did Harold know, this ordinary Tuesday was destined to etch itself into his soul, rekindling a spark long dimmed by time's relentless march, as the door swung open and the first notes of youthful voices prepared to flood the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. As the door to Mabel's diner swung open with its familiar jingle, a wave of fresh autumn air carried in the unexpected the sound of children's laughter muffled into whispers, and then, as if orchestrated by fate itself, the clear, unwavering voices of the fourth graders from Willow Creek Elementary burst forth, filling the cozy space with the opening bars of the Star-Spangled Banner, their small bodies standing tall in a semicircle just inside the entrance, faces beaming with determination and pride. Harold froze mid-sip, his coffee cup hovering near his lips, his eyes widening in disbelief as the lyrics washed over him. "Oh, so can you see, by the dawn's early light," sung not with professional polish but with the raw, heartfelt purity that only children can muster, their harmonies weaving together like threads in a tapestry of gratitude. The diner, usually a haven of clinking silverware and murmured conversations, fell into a stunned silence, patrons pausing with forks in hand, Mabel peeking out from the kitchen with a knowing smile, her apron dusted with flour as she wiped away a tear already forming. The kids, dressed in red, white, and blue vests adorned with handmade stars and stripes, held their signs aloft now, unfurling them like banners of honor. "We salute you, Mr. Jenkins. And thank you for defending our freedom." Other eyes locked on Harold, who sat there in his booth, the weight of decades suddenly lifting as memories flooded back, not in pain this time but in a warm embrace. Emma stepped forward first, her pigtails bouncing as she led the verse, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach, remembering how Mrs. Thompson had told them about Harold's bravery, about the medals tucked away in a drawer at home, never worn but turned through fire and loss. Tommy joined in with gusto, his freckled face serious for once, belting out the high notes as if channeling the spirit of those long-ago soldiers, and the rest of the class followed, their chorus swelling to include "America the Beautiful," the transition seamless, "Oh beautiful," for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, evoking images of the homeland Harold had fought to protect, the purple mountains and fruited plains he had dreamed of during sleepless nights in foreign lands. Harold's hand trembled as he set down his cup, a lump forming in his throat, his vision blurring with unshed tears that he hadn't allowed himself to release in years, not since Eleanor's funeral, when he had stood stoic for the sake of his family. The emotion hit him like a tidal wave of the recognition, the unexpected tribute, the innocence of these children who saw him not as an old man forgotten by time but as a hero worthy of song, and he felt his heart melt, the ice of isolation cracking under the warmth of their voices. Flashbacks intertwined with the present, the beaches of Normandy again, but this time overlaid with the faces of those kids, as if they were the future he had secured, their freedom a direct thread from his sacrifices. One by one, the children approached his booth as the song crested, placing handmade cards on the table, drawings of flags and soldiers, notes scribbled in crayon, "You're my hero, Mr. Jenkins." From little Sarah, "Thank you for being brave." From Jamal, each word a balm to wounds he hadn't realized still ached. Mabel, unable to contain herself, joined the applause that erupted from the other diners, some pulling out phones to capture the moment, others dabbing at their eyes with napkins, the air thick with a shared sense of awe and unity. Harold rose slowly, his cane forgotten, and for the first time in ages, he saluted not with the crisp military precision of his youth, but with a heartfelt gesture that spoke volumes, his voice cracking as he whispered, "Thank you," the words barely audible over the final notes. The kids beamed, rushing forward for hugs, their small arms wrapping around him, and in that embrace, Harold felt alive again, connected to a world that had seemed so distant, the generational gap bridged by melody and kindness. Mrs. Thompson watched from the doorway, her own tears flowing freely, proud of her students for turning a history lesson into a living testament of appreciation. As the song ended, the diner erupted in cheers, strangers clapping Harold on the back, offering handshakes and stories of their own family veterans, turning the surprise into a communal celebration. Harold shared snippets of his past then, his voice gaining strength to the camaraderie of his unit, the fear and resolve, the joy of returning home to Eleonora, and the children listened rapt, eyes wide, absorbing the lessons of resilience and duty. Hours slipped by in conversation, pie shared among the group, laughter mingling with solemn nods, and by the time the school bus honked outside, Harold's face was alight with the smile that reached his eyes, the kind Eleanor would have loved to see. He waved them off, clutching the cards to his chest, promising to visit the school soon, and as the door closed, he sat back down, the diner returning to its rhythm but forever changed for him. That evening, back in his bungalow, Harold pulled out his old uniform from the attic, dusted off the medals, and for the first time, pinned one on, feeling the weight not as burden but as a badge of connection. The story spread through Willow Creek like wildfire, shared on social media, inspiring other schools to plan similar tributes, reminding everyone that heroes walk among us, deserving of our voices raised and thanks. In the days that followed, Harold received letters from across the country, veterans sharing their own tales, families expressing gratitude, and he found himself speaking at assemblies, his story igniting sparks in young hearts. The kids, too, carried the memory forward, their act of kindness blooming into a tradition, annual surprises for local heroes, fostering a community bound by respect and remembrance. And so, in that simple diner surprise, a WWII veteran's heart was not just melted but mended, proving that patriotism isn't just flags and anthems, it's the human touch that echoes through time, binding us all in a chorus of enduring gratitude.